This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Coming up on this week's programme, Big Brother is about to start spying on all European citizens. Can we put a stop to it?
When client-side scanning happens, it will compare the findings of the text to this EU sensor, and this material will be either removed, prevented from being sent, blocked, or reported. And yes, the encrypted messengers fall into the scope of this because the scanning happens before the encryption.
And marine research has uncovered some unusual new species in the lower depths of our seas.
We recorded in our study a lot of species for the very first time in Cyprus. We found very interesting corals, mild beds. These are protected habitats that they're considered very important for fisheries. We found beautiful reefs full of sponges.
On October the 14th, now that really isn't very far away, the European Union is going to vote on legislation that could basically alter our digital privacy across the European Union. I don't know about you, we all use chat, I think, and we send photos and messages and so on and so forth. Most of them are very innocent. But if this legislation goes through, then the authorities will be able to snoop on what you're sending. And the bigger problem is that they will use artificial intelligence to determine whether or not what you are sending is possibly in breach of pornography laws or anything else. Andreas Chialaros is a lawyer who's been looking at this, and he joins us now. Andreas, we are getting into Big Brother territory here, are we not? You've been studying this. Tell me your thoughts about it.
Good afternoon, Rosie. Thank you for having me. You phrased it very correctly. It is the definition of the Big Brother. Specifically, we're talking about, chat control is the slang term given by the critics of regulation laying down rules to prevent and combat child sexual abuse material, CSAM. So, this regulation is being voted for a very good cause, the prevention of child abuse. However, its enforcement equals mass surveillance of all European citizens across the Union.
How have we got to this point, Andreas? We all know that we need to fight crime of any description, and particularly things like child pornography and abuse and trafficking. And yes, I guess that the authorities need to be able to check who's doing what, but that doesn't surely give them carte blanche to actually snoop on you and me and everybody else just in case. And as I say, the worrying thing is they might flag up very innocent stuff. And then what? You'd be banned? How would it work?
This is actually the problem. This is not a solution. Nobody understands, not even the legal council in Europe is able to understand the logic behind this. We're talking about blanket surveillance to prevent crimes. Now, let me start from the beginning to understand how this system is going to operate. Let's picture that every time we whisper to a friend, there's a person standing inside your phone, listening before you are allowed to speak. If they don't like what they hear, your message either never leaves your phone, or worse, you get quietly reported to the authorities. Not sometimes, that's always. And the problem is that actually Cyprus is one of the states that support this. This is a regulation, it's not a directive, which means this would apply directly across the EU, as I mentioned before. So the structure of this framework is as follows. Providers will will assess risk. If there is significant risk, the authorities can compel client-side scanning. That's what they're trying to do, the so-called client-side scanning with a detection order. The findings will be reported to a new EU center. There's going to be some form of database that's going to have material for comparison purposes. When client-side scanning happens, it will compare the findings of the text to this EU center, and this material will be either removed, prevented from being sent, blocked, or reported. And yes, encrypted messengers fall into the scope of this because the scanning happens before the encryption.
I thought we had a law that was passed a long time ago. I seem to remember back in the years when I worked for the Cyprus Broadcasting Corporation, talking to, I believe, an MP and one of our cyber police about a plan to be able to snoop on people's phones, and it was thrown out because it was a breach of our privacy, our human rights, our right to privacy. Does that law still hold here, and how would that change if this regulation goes through?
To be honest, I'm not aware of the legislation you're talking about, but I think you're talking about an identical piece of legislation. Mass surveillance, that's going to happen 24/7. My opinion is that this regulation, if it passes, it will be destroyed in the courts. I don't think this regulation can work out, especially because of violating fundamental rights, basically cancelling the whole notion of encryption, which the European Court of Human Rights ruled that weakening the encryption is against fundamental rights. So it's a matter of time, I believe, that this law will fall into the courts.
However, the vote is going ahead, I presume, in the European Parliament at the beginning of October. So we need to discuss what the ramifications could be. My first thought as well is, if it does go through, how many people are going to be needed in order to surveil all the data that is going to come in from every single mobile phone in the European Union?
Excellent question. First of all, it's going to be happening with AI. The detection will be AI, which is the number one red flag here, because the AI will not be able to distinguish intent, right? It's not going to be able to distinguish intent. And once this gets flagged, it will be reported to the authorities, and the authorities will be flooded by not millions, thousands, hundreds of thousands of suspicious content every day. This is not going to work. Do you understand what's happening? That's not going to work.
Well, it's not if they have to have a human being at the other end to make the final decision. I mean, it's just not practicable, is it? Let's talk about some of the things that might get flagged, because we know that AI is trained in a certain way by certain people. Let's leave aside for the moment any racial or gender or whatever connotations, because those come in as well. But for example, it's August, you're at the beach with your, grandchildren, your children, they're playing in the sand. Your little girl is naked, maybe, because that's what kids do at the beach. And you send a photo to her grandparents or your husband or wife or whatever. That's going to get flagged, isn't it?
Absolutely. My opinion is that this will be flagged, because the AI is not going to be able to distinguish intent. So I send it to the family group. The AI will probably check, here's a naked baby, let's flag it. And, this is going to create a report. This report will be forwarded most probably to the authorities, but the authorities probably will understand the context, but after reading your private conversation, and maybe bring you in for questioning. Why did you send this picture? Who did you send it to?
What about as well the idea that along with all of this, we've got, haven't we, facial recognition these days? That's another thing. Is that going to come in on this as well?
I am not aware of that. But since AI is being deployed, the database that this AI will operate is going to be called an EU center. You're not going to be able to audit or check what this database is. So it could be a possibility for face recognition as well.
What are you hoping that this coming out into the open? I mean, I hadn't heard about it until I read an article recently about the whole thing. What are you hoping that citizens in the European Union will do?
The main responsibility of every citizen who cares about their privacy at this point, and given the very short time frame, is to contact their MPs. Unfortunately, there's nothing more that we can do. Although I'm pretty sure that there will be strong pushback, even though the majority of countries in Europe, they are supporting it. There are still 9 undecided countries. 15 are supporting it, 9 are undecided, and 3 are clearly opposing it. So in these undecided countries, especially Germany, which is a very important vote, European Union citizens must contact urgently their MPs. There's a website called fightchatcontrol.eu. Again, it's fightchatcontrol, that's one word, .eu. There's tons of material in there, very informative material about the implications on our daily lives if this regulation is implemented. And it even has templates that the union citizens can send to their MPs, even the MPs' contact details.
Okay, that's one way to do it. Let me also ask you, you're a lawyer, and I think you're also concerned about how this might actually compromise the privilege communication between a lawyer and a client. Tell me about that.
This was my main concern, and that's the reason I wrote an article about it. I even contacted the Cyprus Bar Association, and they will discuss it on a European on a European level with other lawyers. That's my main concern. I have many people sending me their private data, private conversations, everything on end-to-end encrypted messengers. If this regulation is implemented, we forget end-to-end encryption because it's client-side scanning. We're talking about reading the message before it gets encrypted. So what's the point of end-to-end encryption in the first place? There will be no attorney-client privilege. So I don't know how even the platform is going to react on that. We're not going to have secure communication anymore. As a solicitor, honestly, I don't know what the alternatives are going to be. We are using Proton. I'm pretty sure you're aware of Proton.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Proton is based in Switzerland. Switzerland, however, is also changing its legislation to expand the surveillance powers, and it's moving to EU. But now EU wants to pass this regulation, and I don't think we are left with solutions anymore, other than maybe pigeons, sending our letters with a pigeon.
Go back to the old-fashioned way, writing letters and so on. It's extraordinary. What about the fact, am I right in thinking that politically exposed persons, politicians, government people and so on, are going to be exempt from this?
That's what the plan is. I don't know the technical aspect of it, how it's going to be implemented, and if they will be using some sort of internal system to communicate, that will be exempt. Maybe that's the way. Or maybe they will have to force the platforms to create some sort of special accounts for these individuals. I'm not sure, but you see where the problem is. We are talking about discrimination. We don't scan the politicians' accounts, but everyone else is subject to surveillance.
Well, that seems to go across quite a lot of things these days, doesn't it?
Yep.
So you want people to go to fightchatcontrol.eu, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. It has a lot of materials let me bring up this other website as well. Patrick Breyer is German digital rights activist, and is also a member of the European Parliament. He is a strong advocate for privacy, and in his website, he also has a lot of material that people can use. His website is Patrick, Patrick, then it's a dash, Breyer, BREYER.de. That's another website where people can get important information.
Well, it definitely is important information, because I think we all need to at least know what's planned and, as you say, be in a position to fight it. And the worrying thing I would suggest is that certainly some of our MEPs are probably very much in favour of this, are they? Do we know? Have they said anything?
I'm not sure about the MEPs. Personally, I have contacted two persons close to the MEPs to raise awareness. I do plan to prepare one email to all 6 of our MPs, but I think the most important thing is to raise awareness. Everyone should understand that privacy is what's essentially is one of the core principles of the European Union that we have to protect, and everyone should do their duty to contact their MPs to raise awareness. Because I don't think that the MPs actually understood the implications of this. There is just support from Cyprus since 2023, and this is it.
Well, we should all, I think, be concerned, and this puts GDPR right in the wastebasket, doesn't it?
Exactly. What's the point of GDPR? Europe is known for its strong privacy laws. GDPR encapsulates all that, and we're throwing it down the bin.
We'll send people to the relevant websites and perhaps talk again come October when we see whether or not this does indeed get passed through the European Parliament. Let's assume it does get passed. Then what? It comes to Cyprus and our Parliament has to ratify it. Does it get led by our executive, who seem to be very much in favour of this, or is it simply up to our MPs here in Cyprus to say this is a step too far?
No. Look, what's going to happen is that platforms that are registered in Europe will be forced to comply, including the app stores. That's the effect of this.
So WhatsApp, Viber, all of these different messaging services will be monitored.
We don't know if they're going to comply. But if they don't comply, they are out of the market. The effect of this regulation is that it will first apply on the app stores, on the platforms themselves, which they have to comply, and probably install the client-side scanning software in their applications, and maybe in the future on the hardware itself.
I was going to say, is this going to mean that in the future, the mobile phone you buy is going to have this already in there?
That's one of the concerns of the critics of this regulation.
That is lawyer Andreas Shallaros talking about the chat control plan that the EU is mulling over and will vote in the Parliament on October the 14th. Andreas, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Rare marine habitats have been discovered off the southern coast of Cyprus, according to scientists from the Marine and Environment Research Lab. That's MER. One of their marine biologists joins us now, Christina Michail. Christina, welcome to the podcast. And do please tell me, this is exciting. Things you didn't know were there.
Yes, exciting. And we have recently completed this pioneering, I would say, project for Cyprus. Whereas you said we studied the mesophotic zone of 2 areas in Cyprus, Akrotiri and Dekeia, which also fall within the jurisdiction of the sovereign base areas in Cyprus. We call this project, for short, we call it Mesophos, and it was conducted in collaboration with the Blue Marine Foundation and funded by Darwin Plus through the Biodiversity Challenge Funds. We call them mesophotic zones. So the word mesophotic comes from Greek. Meso means middle, and phos is light. So these are the areas that there is still some light, so in the middle light, let's say. These areas, in our study, we define them as areas between 50 to 200 meters depth. These areas are not easily accessible due to their depth, of course. So using conventional methods such as scuba diving, that as marine biologists, marine scientists, we use a lot, we cannot do this because they're quite deep and also not that safe. And these areas are underexplored globally, so we don't know much about them. And especially for Cyprus, this was the first time that we tried to explore these areas.
Okay, I mean, I've seen interesting films and so on about the area below the Mesophotos. So I suppose that is where it's absolutely totally dark. There's some very weird marine creatures that far down. But what did you discover in the area you were searching?
So in our areas that we explored, we found a lot of interesting species. So I have to say, in both areas, we recorded more than 200 taxonomic groups, and we were able to identify 108 species because we used ROV, that's a remotely operated vehicle. So it's like a small photograph that is, let's say, a small camera that is connected with the boat, and we recorded footage, so we recorded videos. We then reviewed all the footage, and we were able to take screenshots and then identify everything almost everything, or whatever we could, that we could see to species level if possible. And for this reason, we got the help of 10 expert taxonomists, because in science, it's not easy to recognize species from photos, and especially in this environment that there is so little research. So we recorded in our study a lot of species for the very first time in Cyprus. We found very interesting corals, mild beds. These are protected habitats that they're considered very important for fisheries. We found beautiful reefs full of sponges, polychaetes, sea stars, and many, many different species, many of which we could not identify, of course.
I think we have to mention as well, Christina, that along with finding some interesting species, you also found a lot of rubbish, I think, which is a bit worrying since you were looking so deep into our sea. What did you come up with?
Yes, exactly, Rosie. It's disheartening to see that even at deep depth, we recorded marine litter. You can also see, we have also released a YouTube video where you can see some of our footage. You can see very clearly soda cans or beer cans and other plastics. It's so interesting that you can also see the colors and the brands very clear. That also means that at this depth, decomposition is very slow, so they take ages to decompose, so they remain more or less forever. But apart from marine litter, we found ghost gear, we found a lot of fishing gear stuck on the reef. There were big reefs covered with fishing lines, and now there is a lot of life actually growing on it.
The other thing is that we want to get the message across. You can see the sort of litter you just spoke about. The one thing none of us really can see is the microplastics that are pretty well everywhere. So a lot more research, I think, needs to be done on that, doesn't it?
Yes, of course. Can I also say that we also found scars on the bottom from trawling, because of this depth,
Trawling is, I have to say, one of the most impactful pressures. And because of that, we found corals. So corals take ages to grow again. So, and trawling destroys everything.
What sort of use will the information that you're gathering with this project be? What can we do with this information? Because I'm thinking particularly of the amount of degradation of our coastal waters. There are so many ongoing problems at the moment. I'm thinking of Bendagomo, for example. How can this information that you guys are gathering be put to use so that we can show people how very important our coastal waters are?
Well, one of the reasons why we actually started this project is first to learn about these areas, because we didn't know anything about them in Cyprus, and because what we say is that without data there is no protection, no restoration, no conservation. So how we can use them? So now we know that they're here for sure, that we have some species, some vulnerable, fragile species in Cyprus. We know some of the areas and a very, very small amount of the areas that they are found. I also have to mention that these, some of the corals that we found, they tend to be slow growing, slow to recover, so protecting them early really matters. So what we wanted to do as well was, after we found these locations, and now that we know that they are there in specific areas, we have specific species, protected species, vulnerable species, we want to use this information, give this information to the authorities in order to protect them, hopefully. So, yes, now with evidence in hand, we have already engaged with both authorities, like the Department of Fisheries and Marine Research in Cyprus, and also the Sovereign-Based Areas Administration, and actually we collaborated with them from the early beginning of this project because we requested data from them in order to help us find our selected site. So we believe by engaging them, engage the authorities in this project, and by giving them all the information, all the raw data that we now have, we can now help them, and our work can provide a baseline to also catalyze this cross-jurisdictional dialogue.
You worked as you said, off the British bases. Are you planning to take this project into Cypriot coastal waters? Because there's an awful lot of coastline that we don't know much about, and I'm thinking particularly of the sort of areas that I just mentioned that are in terrible danger of being ruined by development.
Yes, of course. Actually, that is also one of our plans, one of our dreams and goals, and but of course science and research requires funding. But we would really like to continue this study, continue this work, and potentially map the whole coastline of Cyprus, or at least the one that is under the jurisdiction of the Republic of Cyprus. And we have already, we had 2 workshops actually, where we presented the main outcomes of the project. One was open to the public, and the second one was only for the authorities. So we have already presented our outcomes to the authorities. And actually from the Department of Fisheries and Marine Research, there was a lot of interest in continuing this study. So we hope that in the future they will find the funds, release a tender to map these areas, so we can learn more about Cyprus in total.
Yeah, and save the areas that need saving. I wish you the best of luck. I hope you get the funding to extend the exploration of the mesophotic zone of the Cyprus seas. Christina Michail from the Marine and Environmental Research Laboratory. Thanks for joining me.
much, Rosie. Thank you.
Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.